Welcome, Diego. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to show your work and understanding where your position is in terms of all the futuristic designs that you have created using artificial intelligence and not, and how do you operate with that? How do you create value out of all this human knowledge? Also moving forward toward the metaverse.
Thank you, Vera. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for organizing this space so I can tell my story. I think many people out there might find some value in the story itself. My name is Diego Castro. I'm a digital AI CGI artist. I'm currently based in London. I do have an architectural background in South America and Australia, and I have an exceptional talent endorsement by the Arts Council England. This is Monomo. This is the brand I've been working on for the past 10 years. I developed this brand for almost a decade. It's been focused on creating CGI artifice mainly for architectural companies and designers, architects, and architectural buildings. So I created this diagram to explain a little bit of all the intersections that I've been involved with through the years. I'm going to start telling a little bit of the story, beginning with what I was just talking about between the intersection between architecture and CGI, which is computer generated imagery created by 3D software. Initially, I was very interested after my training as a designer, all the software that was being used to represent all the models from architectural projects. So I decided after briefly working for a couple of practices to start my own brand in South America. And then I went on following years to produce more than 3,000 CGI renderings for different firms around the world, mostly every continent besides Asia. I'm going to show you the work that we did. We focused on interior design. This was with a firm called Mobile Architects, is penthouse design. These are some of the other examples. This one's a project in South America for a public building. The one in the center is penthouse in the Bjarke Ingels building at Coconut Grove with Tamara Feldman, which is a Miami designer. And the right is another penthouse design in South America. These are just some of the samples of the work that we did, focusing mostly on atmosphere and this intangible emotions that you get when you see architectural renderings. So it's a little bit of an intersection between architecture, technology, and art. And at one point, since we started having contracts with different companies around the world, I found myself in blockchain and crypto through payment methods, since it was this new technology being developed for payment methods, which now has a way broader use, and everything's coming a little bit full circle in terms of all the intersections. But that was my involvement with that. And then at one point, all the metaverse projects like Sandbox, Decentraland started coming out. And it's interesting because since we already had the knowledge for building CGI and extensive knowledge on all the 3D software, these were the ones used also for metaverse 3D creation. Recently, we started working in a project called The Floating Island. This is designed by Mariana Cabugueira. We collaborated on this project earlier this year. She was initially at Zaha Hadid, and now she's working at Wilderworld. These are some of the pieces that we developed. They're available on Foundation. We initially just launched it as a concept project. We're both really interested in organic design and relationship with nature. So this was a very special project. This was one of the images that we recently developed for the World Trinity Islands project, which Mariana is designing at the moment as director of architecture there. And jumping from that, CGI has been evolving through the years. There's been updates, there's been new companies with different sets of tools that have been joining the industry. And the more that happens, the more real the images get, the more advancements the rendering technologies have. And I think the diffusion models, which is a new area of visualization, specifically the text-to-prompt machine learning models, is one of the highlights of this year. And of course, and I particularly have been exploring and creating some concepts with this. This is one of the projects that I've been working on. I call it the nature meditation structures. For these projects, I'm trying to communicate a narrative of a synthesis between the built environment and nature. As an architect and as a visualizer, you most of the time see this barrier between built projects and pockets of nature. So I guess this is an expression for myself, or a vision where these pockets start to diffuse and you start to lose the limits between nature and the built environment and architectural projects. It's just an idea project, it's fictional, to provoke the minds of future developers and architects. And I feel that AI is a tool. So many people think that it's just text prompting something and then it just appears, but there's a little bit of a dialogue, of a conversation going on with the machine learning model. And since it's in a constant state of evolution, then the conversations start to get more rich and interesting. This is another project I've been working on. These pieces are being exhibited now at the Meta Controverse exhibition in Paris, which is curated by Shiva Lynn Burgos and George Back. And they're also going to be exhibited here in London this Friday at the Bloomer Gallery. These are called the Harvesting Structure series. This is where I try to recreate like technological structures that are not only habitable, but they're used for crops and produce. I was heavily inspired by many documentaries about the fungi system and understanding how everything is connected within the ecosystems of the fungi. Fantastic fungi. It's one of my favorites. This is another project called Nootopia. I try to think of projects that are innovative and like you can't really see the difference between the architectural project and nature. It's emerged between the two worlds. I'm also doing this because I am a huge advocate for the natural environment. As we all know, there's a climate change crisis going on. Yeah, we're acidifying our oceans, we're increasing the amount of water needed to sustain our lives as a society, and there's many issues involved with the current direction that we have as a society. So this is sort of like my way of expressing that we can think about new futures and a better way to relate ourselves to nature. These are some of the pieces that I've been working on. You can go check them. They're all posted in Instagram at monomosite tag. I've been also using Midjourney, is one of my favorite tools. It was the first one I really started thinking that it was useful for architects for thinking ideas. Some of these are also being done with Stable Diffusion. I played with DALL-E 2 as well. At least like 8 companies that have text prompt to image machine learning models. And it's quite interesting how the technology actually works, how they produce the images and how they help you to validate your ideas way more quickly than CGI allows you to do that. Since I'm very proficient at CGI, I've become pretty fast. It always helps if you have a huge database of models and setups and everything to validate your ideas as a designer. But this is just like another level. For any of these concepts, it would have taken at least some days or a week to produce some interesting results, to share and to create a dialogue with other creatives about what you're doing. But mostly they're pieces that come together within a day or something like that. I would say collections, because for most of these you create around let's say, I don't know, 500 or 600 iterations until you're happy with the result that you get. It's creating a bridge for people that maybe have visions but do not have the talent as creators to express them. I do have a friend, she works in the mental health and mindful industry for Web3, and she's working now with patients and using Midjourney as a way to make them visualize safe space for them and healing spaces for their own. So I think we're seeing many applications of this on the broader side of architecture. But I think if we are trying to extract value from these new tools being created, I think it's just in its nascency, so it's very easy to just jump in there and try to understand it before it becomes really complex to understand. Because I think the more time it passes, it's going to get more complex and more detailed. So the barrier to entry is going to get a little higher. I think there's going to be, there was a very interesting plugin released a couple of weeks ago with Blender and Stable Diffusion. Since Stable Diffusion is open source technology, they released a plugin which you can put into the software. You can create basic modeling shapes, and it will grab information from that and recreate with some text prompt any project that you have in mind. So it's a little fun intersection to play around with. There's another type of technology being developed, which is the Dream Fusion. This is way more in its infancy than these models. But it's going to be very interesting because these models are not going to be just able to produce images, but they're also going to be able to produce 2D models themselves. So maybe it's going to be fantastic for concept design because you can skip the modeling part in the concept phase, which sometimes is time costly. Just produce some concept, put it in there. As architects, I think one of the values that you get is from all these abstract ideas, at least for now, you can actually put them into real world projects, and you can run them environments and test structures and test like real world scenarios. And I think, well, AI is still not there, so I think there's still a lot of value to be added by architects and their knowledge. I think for the future there will be an intersection between the two worlds. I don't think they're going to stay apart for long. Another interesting watch that people that are interested in this should go and take a look is the AIDA presentation at the House of Lords, where she states specifically, I want to read quote from there: "The role of tech in creating art will continue to grow as artists find new ways to use tech to express themselves and explore the relationships between technology, society, and culture. The camera, photography, and films are an earlier example. Technology can be a threat as it can be an opportunity." This is very interesting because this just recently happened, and I think it's a very, very realistic way to look at it. There's some opportunities and there's some threats. I think we should, as professionals, we should capitalize on the opportunities. There's a lot of intersections for that, not only in the AI world, but in the blockchain space. So I think it's happening. So the more people that find these intersections and just jump in there, I think it's going to be a very interesting following decade or half decade. Thank you so much.
We learned so much, and I do have a few questions and curiosity about how do you channel all these into your blockchain value?
Yes. Well, specifically, I'm working on a project. So for all these concepts now, I'm trying to upload them as NFTs. And as a digital artist, I'm sort of like carving my way into that space. So they're going to be initially uploaded as NFTs in my account in Foundation, also goes as Monomo site. But I'm going to build this project. There's an application called Spatial, and they're holding a competition until the 17th of November. Spatial is an application that you can download on your phone, your iPad, or your PC. You can even access it through VR, where you can hold gatherings, you can create NFT galleries, you can do events. So it's sort of like an MVP of what a future metaverse is going to look like. So this project is going to be soon integrated with that. What I'm waiting is for the 3D technologies to evolve to a point where you can translate this concept into digital spaces, and to technologies such as Unreal Engine, which is one of my favorites, to give access to blockchain projects to work with their technology. Because at the moment, it's just everything's going on a little bit behind closed doors. If you read through their recent documentation, they still don't have a roadmap for blockchain projects. but I'm pretty sure that's going to happen at one moment. So if you have knowledge from 3D software, and you already know how to do Unreal projects, just I think the best way to do is to prepare environments for that jump, because I think that is mostly something they're looking at and something that's going to be possible in the future. You're going to be able to have digital real estate. If you have your own communities, you can do gatherings within your own digital real estate for spatial. You can produce NFTs, not as digital ownership, but as tickets. So if you own an NFT, then you can access the space. So it's sort of like becoming a part of a club or something.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I'm looking at the designs that you produce here, and of course, curious about the process. How would you actually create the 3D once you have been satisfied with the outcome of the prompt, or you already have some kind of image in mind and try everything to make it even more elevated from Midjourney or DALL-E? Or do you create all of that back and forth from AI to 3D, from 3D to diffusion? Maybe an example you could bring to clarify.
Yes, of course. That's a really good question. Mostly with these AI concepts, I really haven't jumped into 3D back into the AI models, because since it's so recent, this just happened this weekend. They just launched the B4 version of Midjourney, where if you upload and I've been trying this out, it's kind of crazy. When you jump from something, let's say that you created in CGI, and then you just put it in the model, and then you give it a little prompt. It's just crazy how similar it looks with the additional things that you specified in the text prompting model. I don't really have any examples in this presentation. I can tell you from what I saw that jumping from AI to 3D softwares and then jumping into AI again is getting easier and easier. Most of these concepts were developed 3 months ago. Before that, yeah, Midjourney was just like version 2. It was very, very artistic, very limited. It was kind of like an interesting project. If you see the third image, interesting process, sorry. If you see the third image from the left to the right at the top, if you go into my Instagram and you check that series, you can probably find some images that I uploaded on purpose to show how different that looks from the initial prompt you gave. So initially you would have to jump at least like 40 iterations, just like trying to follow your instinct as a designer to continue and improve and find those shapes, those interesting shapes that you thought were of value. And that was one of the first series I worked on. It was super interesting because you started from like this abstract shapes and then ended up with these almost detailed but not detailed concept. That was a very interesting process. You can still use in Midjourney the earlier models. If you jump into the settings, you can use the earlier versions to experience that yourself. If you jump into the latest versions, the bridge between the text prompt and the design that you're looking for is getting shorter and shorter, and then you can feed it very specific information from reference projects. So it kind of looks the way that you want it to do. And I use that mostly like a base point. Then there was also an added functionality called Remix, and I think Stable Diffusion also developed some tool for that, which is like every time you produce a text prompt, it produces a result. You can then change the prompt for the next iteration and then add some details that maybe you forgot before. So it's getting very, very customizable, and I think it's just gonna improve and improve constantly. It's been like 3 or 4 months since the public release, and the amount of updates is just never ending. Yeah.
It is amazing. It's quite popular, all of us thinking about, the problem is when to stop.
Yes.
And
it's a little bit addictive.
yeah. So thank you so much again, Diego. I have seen some of the works that would be potentially adoptable for Mars City design. Actually, we have a VR virtual reality platform where it moves toward more and more metaverse, and we collaborate with our spacecraft VR, and they are based in Texas A&M. We're a team of aerospatial training. Basically, we train astronauts from using the VR to handle different skills like activating 3D printing machine on Mars, for example. How do you start producing all kinds of life support systems once the crew arrive? Or how do you operate in space during the 9-month trip to get to Mars? What kind of other tools we need to create on the way to Mars, on arriving to Mars, but also the departure time. So there are so many different 3D designs that could completely support this effort, and hopefully, hopefully we can populate the Mars City with excellent designs like this. Really appreciate
of
your.
course, it would be my pleasure. That sounds incredible.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Our time is up, unfortunately, but we will definitely keep updating our audience about your progress and wonderful insights. We're all very inspired. I can't wait to see what our audience come up with after learning from you. So truly appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vera. It was a pleasure to share this space with you, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to what happens with Mars City Design.
Thank you.